Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Spiritual Times with me, Philip Solomon, every Thursday, broadcasting between 7 and 8 on YouTube for you. And we all try to look at different things to give you some advice about. And I think one of the things that a lot of you have sent and asked me about is hypnosis. I tried as an hypnotist, hypnotherapist many years ago under a wonderful gentleman called, well, his stage name as an hypnotist was Delavar. It was Delavar that he was his stage name. But his actual name was Gordon Mee. And he trained me over a few weeks to be both a stage hypnotist and a hypnotherapist. I was never too interested really in being a stage hypnotist, but I don't knock stage hypnotists. I think for a lot of people, they say, well, how can you prove that hypnotherapy works? Well, I think one way, at least if you see an hypnotist working, and perhaps your friends have been up there on the stage and, I don't know, doing the Elvis thing or the funky chicken, whatever you take my point, don't you? At least you know that guy can do the work. But there again, I think today there are a lot of very good hypnotherapists who you can go to and get your hypnotherapy done with and trust and be quite okay with them. British Medical Board, uh, they have people who you can go and say. But I would say, I think, if possible, it's always better if you can to go to somebody on recommendation, and if you can afford to have either a private session in that person's office or over the I do my private work like this over Zoom or other video possibilities, and I think it works a lot better than probably taking you on the pathways that many of you have probably come across, self-hypnosis, where you can purchase the discs from some very famous hypnotists and hypnotherapists, and you play the disc and you learn about self-hypnosis. A lot of people ask me about self-hypnosis, and I've just took a few little notes here, which I think might help you in making your mind up what you would want to go forward with. I would just like to say that, in my opinion, I think for stopping smoking and losing weight, sensible weight loss, I don't think there's anything really beats hypnotherapy. I think it really is the top number. But look into all sorts of things. You've got great opportunities. You could Weight Watchers and things like that with weights, can't you? And I mean, you can get to see some hypnotherapist recommendations from your physician if they're up to speed with that sort of thing. But also, I will give it a little bit of information on self-hypnosis because that you can try that. And for many people, it works very well. I don't know if it's ever really as good as going along to a hypnotherapist like myself or one of the well-known people. You've got the guys that you've seen on telly, haven't you? And Jonathon Royale's a very good friend of mine. He's always advertising different opportunities with hypnosis, and he's very good. And as I say, you've got the very famous ones on TV who offer various things and what have you. But a lot of people are interested in self-hypnosis. Well, self-hypnosis or auto-hypnosis is a self-induced state of focused concentration and deep relaxation, similar to the everyday trance you enter when fully engrossed in a book or a movie, if you take my point, when you're doing that sort of activity. It is not mind control or unconscious state, really. You remain aware generally and in control the entire time of that self-hypnosis work that you're doing. Uh, in this state, you can give yourself positive suggestions or intentions to help you monitor behaviors, manage emotions, and achieve personal goals. What can self-hypnosis be used for? Well, I've told you one of the main ones, or people that come to me about was when they wanted to stop smoking or lose weight, sensible control, loss of weight, or a lot of sport. I've worked with a lot of sportsmen and sportswomen over the years, and I think that's been part of sport now for many years. A lot of the professional boxers, professional footballers are very aware of how this sort of thing can help you. It also can help you with stress and anxiety reduction. induce deep relaxation to calm your mind and body. I think that's always a very good thing to look into. I will say, and I'm sorry to say this, but if anyone, yourself included, have got any sort of mental health conditions, you really should discuss it first with your physician, your doctor. And I don't recommend hypnosis for people who are suffering that sort of condition. It's not the right time to be approaching it. But breaking up bad habits, assisting in overcome issues, like I've said, smoking, overeating, nervous habits, and that big one, confidence building, which is a big thing in sport, isn't it, really? I think you've heard many of the professional boxers who've said, that maybe 10, 15% difference can be achieved, from studying that sort of work. I always remember the great Lennox Lewis, or they used to say you went to sleep in the dressing room before he spouts. I think he was a bit more clever than what you probably think, Lennox, and was probably using a method of sort of building his confidence when he was doing it. I would think that. I've not worked with Lennox. I've worked with some people who've gone on to win world titles or become professional footballers and what have you. But one way you can sort of practice self-hypnosis for yourself and see how it works, what you want to do, really, I always say before you do any of this work, and I know a lot of you have readings with me and whatnot, always say a little prayer for what you believe to be good, to whatever you perceive to be God or good in this world. And if you're an atheist, think of something good, something in the world that you think is powerful and nice. If you can't think of any of those things, you probably wouldn't be very wise to be doing any of this sort of work, really. But say a little prayer before you start doing the work. And then learn to sort of maybe sit in a place where you won't be disturbed for just half an hour. Half an hour is generally enough, and learn to do a bit of meditation if you can. Meditation is a very good key to work with if you're interested in doing self-hypnosis. And it's not that difficult to get used to once you get into it. Yeah, there are lots of meditation techniques. One of the simplest ones that I suggest is sitting in a darkened room and looking at a candle in the dark and staring at the candle. And then, when you feel that you're in tune with your inner self, just say to yourself, I want to improve. If it's smoking, let's make smoking as an example. I want to reduce my smoking, or I want to stop smoking. I know that it's bad for me. I know it makes me ill and it's not progressive. And perhaps repeat that about 4 or 5 times. Then put the light on and think about what you've been talking about. And light the candle again in the light and say it again. I think the suggestion that you use the words over and over again would be very helpful too if you wanted to try a bit of self-hypnosis and take it that way. Like I say, find a quiet space. I've made a few notes here. Yeah, choose a nice, comfortable, distraction-free environment for about half an hour. That's more than enough, really. Sitting in a chair with your feet uncrossed. That's a good suggestion. Lying down if you want to, if you feel more comfortable in doing it that way. I think sitting is really a pretty good way to do it, really, because when you're doing self-hypnosis, you're not really looking to go to sleep. There are some talented hypnotherapists and hypnotists who can put you to sleep, but we've had years and years of practice, and we really know how to do those sort of things. And when you're practicing self-hypnosis, you probably haven't got that experience. Nothing to worry about in what I'm teaching you, quite safe, but you could keep that to mind. Set your intention. Clearly define your goals probably before starting. This could be to relax, build confidence, or overcome the specific habits that I've said. Or just, so, I think self-hypnosis is great for helping you in your life generally. I'm going to be more confident at work. I'm going to be more confident in my relationship. I'm going to be more confident in the way I talk to people. So many people, in this world, this may not apply to you, but so many people in this world, they can't even speak to people that they don't really know really well and give a false impression of what they're really like. Because people think, oh, well, he or she, he's not very friendly. But sometimes it's just shyness, isn't it? I could mention several relaxing techniques that I've made an idea for you, really. But I think that one of my methods is to recommend to you is the eye fixation method, where you learn to gaze at a single point of focusing upon. I've suggested a candle, but it might be something else, a little statue or something that you like. And what you want to do is to learn to breathe a bit more pronounced than what you normally do. Breathe in and out. Breathe in and out. This is after you've done your little meditative state. In and out. And repeat that about 20 times. And then say out aloud to yourself the things that you want to do. Visualization can be very useful as well. If you want to imagine a scene, perhaps where you see yourself in the scene or talking to somebody that you would like to be able to talk to more easily. And play that in your mind, visualize seeing that and say to yourself, what, this is me, this is this doing this. I can do this and I'll achieve the results that I want. You might find that you do go into a deeper state of relaxation and find yourself getting sleepy. That's absolutely fine, but you don't have to do that. I've just made a few notes for you, which really I suppose I've already gone over with really, but a lot of people ask me the question, is self-hypnosis safe? Well, self-hypnosis is a safe and empowering way to create positive change for most people. However, a healthcare professional, as I've said, should be consulted before practicing, especially if you've got certain mental health conditions. If you're suffering from schizophrenia or dissociative disorders, things of that nature, I think can be pretty confident that your physician is not going to recommend you to be going into these methods of self-hypnosis. And another few tips that you might like to write down. Practice regularly. You need to do it regularly. It's not not having said that, I've known some people who've practiced self-hypnosis and bang, they've got it and it's in their mind and they're away with it. And I only need really half an hour with anyone really, and that's all it takes most of the time to get the hypnotic state in place and get you on the road to doing the things that you want to do and improving. Um, so you can have group sessions as well. Not, I don't sort of recommend that so much, group sessions. Many hypnotherapists do. But I mean, I always, well, I did have used to do sessions with football teams and rugby teams, and you've always got a joker who's not going to take it serious. And it's probably because he or she's really quite nervous that they ruin everything for everybody else. And that's been my experience. So I'm not that recommending the group situations. If you want to really get in touch with a good hypnotherapist, hypnotist, whatever you want to call us, you can always get in touch with me. Or I've mentioned Jonathon Royale. Look on, go on the internet, and Google hypnotherapist local. But the thing that I've really said as well, and I hope you remember it, is recommendation, and practice regularly. Might put this something that you're going to work on for about 6 weeks. At the end of 6 weeks, you'll probably find you've got the thing into your mind that you want to achieve. But you do have to stay patient and don't get discouraged if your goal isn't achieved in the space of time that you would hope for it to be. I think if you go as a professional hypnotist, hypnotherapist, it should be there and done in one session. And most of the people who've come to me say that that's been enough. But sometimes I have to be honest and say, it can take 4 or 5 sessions, and you have to have that patience. And, I suppose if you're paying for that hypnotherapist time, then you have to think about the financial position. Again, now, while I don't pay the amazing, ridiculous prices that you say some hypnotherapists are asking for, I think a reasonable session, £50, I think that would be more than what I would think reasonable. It's not for me to question what other people cost. There's certainly therapists who charge considerably more than that. It's not my business and I don't wish to comment on it. But I would look for a good hypnotherapist who's got good recommendation. And I suppose that places that you're going to look, is probably on Google. Put your area in hypnotherapist recommendations and read the reviews. Sometimes you have to be a little bit careful about reviews, don't you? It's like that book. People write a book and you see fantastic reviews. And I've written 35 books over the years, and by and large, I've had wonderful reviews. But I think sometimes you might get a person going a little bit over the top, and then maybe they're just trying to be nice. But I think reviewers always look for what seems sensible and what seems to be what you're looking for, and you won't go far wrong with that, really. As I say, I've made a few notes tonight, but generally, if you want to just remember the things that I've told you, you won't go far wrong, you know. So self-hypnosis versus hypnotherapy with a trained therapist. While self-hypnosis is a valuable tool, in-person hypnotherapy offers unique benefits. I say this, a professional hypnotherapist can help identify underlying issues and provide customized guidance as you go, and probably scripts you're tailored to specific needs of self-conscious self-hypnosis to be practiced later, or just gets the job done in one session. But you may want to reinforce any session that you've had after by using the techniques that I've said. I write all those notes down really, and then I've been doing this work for so many years, whoever is a professional medium, a healer, hypnotherapist, all those things. I've been doing it for so many years. I don't know why I do take notes, because I don't know, if it's better if I don't just talk to you, really. I suppose that's mostly what I do. As I say, I'll repeat again, it can really help you with stress and help you to have deep relaxation and calm your mind. You'll find when you're using the techniques, that little meditation session that I've suggested before you say the magic words, I will, I can, I shall, I insist, I will do. These are all very positive sort of affirmations. If you talk to yourself and say, I don't know if I can really do this, you never will. Or I don't know whether this is for me. It's too hard. I can't concentrate. No, you can. You can. And if you reinforce that in your mind, I will, I can, and I'm going to do. These are the magic words, really. They're all the famous hypnotists that you might have seen on TV or whatever, or different things. These are the magic words that they've learned to tell people over the years and to teach, to emphasize, to use those words, because that's what it's all about, really. And as I've said, I've made lots of notes here, really, but I think I've already probably covered it with you. I suppose that's a good point that I've made there. Progressive muscle relaxation, systematically getting less tense and then releasing the tensions that we all have. That fits in with that little quiet space that you do, that half an hour. If you can sort of put the worries of the day out in your mind and forget the bills for now, for that half an hour, just relax on, really focusing on improving yourself and achieving the tasks that you want to achieve. And it's not that really hard to do. You may find as after your first session, if you need to do quite a few, the more times you do it, the more you will become deeper and more go into your mind. And that's for self-hypnosis. As I say, in my opinion, I think if good hypnotherapist, you should get the jobs done in that one session usually, or maybe four at the outside. But I usually find most of my sessions just get it done in the one session. And and as I say, there's lots of things that you could try. There are group therapy sessions that you can go along and do those. I've given you my opinion on those, but it's just what I consider the best, and trying to give the best advice I can to you. Recommendation, you can't really beat recommendation. And as I say, don't assume, I've explained to you this, but I'll say it again. Don't assume that the one who charges you the vast amounts of money is the best. Not always the case. And of course, these days, hypnotherapy is respected and accepted by the medical people, and they may be able to put you in touch with a nurse or some similar medical practitioner who's been on various training courses in hypnotherapy to be able to help you in that way. Uh, my experiences of now is it's a pity they couldn't probably recommend you really to just people who are hypnotherapists or hypnotists in their working life, you know. And there's now, you know, I've got certificates from way back in the day when I trained under Gordon May. I've got several certificates from Jonathon Royale, who I've mentioned, a good friend of mine. And there's no harm in asking to see a person's qualifications, or if you're going along to somebody who's been recommended by your physician, then ask to see their qualifications if you feel you'll be more confident in that. Nothing wrong in doing that. And as I say, don't always assume that the most expensive is the best. The best one is the one who's got all the best recommendations, genuine ones. That's a very good piece of advice. Well, a lot of you have asked me about self-hypnosis particularly and hypnosis generally. And, you know, it's only a very short little chat that I have to you here every week, but I think it fits in nicely with Spiritual Times with Philip Solomon, because I think you are working on another level of higher understanding, and I think your spiritual inner self can certainly help with all these things. It's like the dentist. I always think the dentist is one of the people that most people are nervous of going to. And you hear of people who've suffered pain, don't you, for 20, 30 years and won't go in the dentist chair. And really, you know, honestly, in the back of your mind that you know you can have that cocaine or wherever they used today, the dental practitioners, and you're not going to feel any pain, but it's in your mind, and that's something that I'd like to talk to you about, because a lot of the problems that you may have in your life or causing you difficulties can relate to experiences that you've had many, many years ago. If you've been in a bad relationship with somebody who's got a certain look, you know, it's only natural that you look at that person and you think, "Oh, I don't like them. There's something wrong about that." Now, there's nothing wrong with that, because I think it's a good thing generally to go by your feelings. But if you're thinking, "Oh, I ain't going to get to the dentist. I'd sooner suffer this pain. Oh, I'm terrified," you know. Well, why not try a bit of hypnotherapy? Hypnotherapy, you think you can do it, or go and see a good hypnotherapist, and they'll learn you how to make it a lot more easy for yourself. It's a great thing as well, like I've said, in that meditative state, is to see yourself going to the dentist, playing football and scoring the goal, winning the world title and putting the belt around your waist if you're a boxer or something like that, or just being successful in life in that meditative state that I've taught you about. Say thou successful you. Let the successful you be there clearly in your mind, and remind yourself over and over again, this is going to happen. I'm going to do this. I'm not going to smoke anymore. I'm fed up of being overweight. It's making me ill. I don't like the way I look. It's at an end. It's going to finish, and it's going to start that finishing point as soon as I sit in my nice comfortable chair, relax and do that little meditation that I've said. Now, because I'm a spiritual man, right at the end, I'm going to say I asked you before you do any sort of work on your own, especially if it was more spiritual, to always just say a little prayer to what you perceive to be good and godly and has to be kept safe. There's no danger in hypnosis really, but do it for me anyway. And in any other practices you do. If you go and have a card reading with someone, or a psychic advice, even some mediums, you know, they should know, mediums, to put psychic protection in place and say that little prayer. And I'm sure most do. But I'm also equally sure that there's some that don't. And I'm only giving you my personal opinion. Not perhaps not all hypnotherapists do that, but I always put that in place for you. But if you're doing it yourself, remember to do it. Say a little prayer and ask for psychic protection and to be cared for by what you perceive to be good and godly in the world. Now, when you finish that half an hour, just another little prayer. Say, thank you for the wonderful achievements that I have made myself. Thank you for the wonderful achievements that I have made myself. Thank you for keeping me protected and for the spiritual care that you have given me. And I always say a little prayer, and your little prayer that's meaningful to you, and close it down. And that's done with. Well, I can't tell you too much, I suppose, about everything in there. I thought maybe I would have a session where I'd teach you all about the history and talk to you about Franz Mesmer, who very famous hypnotists and people like that. And, Freud talks a lot about his opinions in psychoanalysis, doesn't he, and all that sort of stuff, and talks about. But I think really, if you really want to know about that stuff, go into one of the search engines. I'll say Google, but any searching engine that you've got, and type in hypnotherapy history, and I think you can find a load of that stuff just as much as I could sit here talking to you, and you'll be thinking, well, why don't we just get on and tell us about how to get this thing, hypnotherapy, to hand? And that's really what I've done for you tonight, and I hope it's been beneficial to you. And I wish you all the best in achieving your intentions of doing things that you want to be better at, or that you want to put away from your life, because you can do, I promise you, you can do it. And if you tell yourself enough times in the system that I've said to you that you're going to do that, well, it will happen and you'll do it. If you've decided from my advice that you're going to go along and look for a good hypnotherapist or something of that nature to work with, look for recommendations. Don't always go for the most expensive. Some people have got an old-fashioned saying, you only get what you pay for. I don't know whether that's strictly true in the sort of things that I've been talking to you on Spiritual Times with Philip Solomon. Sometimes the very best are not so as expensive as what you might think they might be. There might be very caring people who just want to make the gifts or the experience or the work that they've studied available to all, and not just a select few. So I'm going to say good night, God bless, be good. If you can't be good, always be careful. That's very good advice. And I'll see you again in 7 days' time. Bye bye now. Bye bye.